First Person now, and over the coming weeks, we will feature extended conversations with our Delaware congressional delegation.
Yep, and we are starting the conversation this week with Senator Tom Carper. Welcome, Senator. Good to
thanks
see you.
A lot. If we were doing this show in California, when I was in the Navy, I lived in California before I came here. And if we were doing this show in California, you could do it for 55 weeks because they have 2 senators and 53 representatives.
Oh, wow.
Here we knock it out in 3 weeks.
Right. That's why we like Delaware. Yeah. Senator, let's first start talking about what's going on in the stock market. And I want to ask, can it get any worse?
Oh, it can get a lot worse, and it has. But it can also get better. If you look at the underlying performance of a lot of the companies, big companies especially, they're making a lot of money. They're sitting on a lot of cash. And I think part of the key is to try to convince them that they shouldn't just continue to sit on a pile of cash, but they should invest it, not necessarily overseas, but back here in hiring people and investing, making capital investments. And one of the reasons why companies are sitting on that kind of cash is because of huge uncertainties with what are we going to do about our budget deficits, what are we going to do about tax policy, what's going to happen to the health care legislation, is it going to be deemed constitutional, unconstitutional, are we ever going to have any kind of comprehensive energy policy, how about our transportation policy? We're watching our infrastructure literally decay in front of our eyes. We're unwilling to pay to update it. So companies like predictability, they like certainty, and right now they don't have much. And one of the best things we could have done would have been passed a couple of weeks ago when we were in session, a comprehensive bipartisan real deficit reduction plan that reformed entitlement programs, reformed the tax code, and provided certainty, at least on two fronts. One, demonstrate we can govern. Two, demonstrate that we can actually bring down our budget deficits over the long haul in a thoughtful way. And 3, to try to provide some sense to our tax code.
Well, I want to talk about that debate over the debt ceiling. I mean, you've been in Washington for a few years. Have you seen anything like that before?
I probably haven't. I don't know that I've, in my 10 years in the Senate, I don't think I've ever been more disappointed than I was during that debate. We had, about a year ago, the President created, as you may recall, a deficit commission co-chaired by Erskine Bowles, who was Bill Clinton's chief of staff, who actually negotiated a deficit reduction deal that led to 3 balanced budgets in the second term of Bill Clinton's administration. And co-chaired by Alan Simpson, former U.S. Senator Republican from Wyoming. They came up with a plan late last year that said, let's take at least $4 trillion out of the deficit over 10 years. Everything's on the table, entitlement programs, taxes, some revenues. They actually didn't raise tax rates, though. They actually lowered the rates. They broadened the base by eliminating a lot of tax loopholes, tax breaks, tax credits, and so forth. And we're able to raise revenues, but for every $1 revenue raised under the plan, $3 in spending cuts were enacted. And it was a good balanced plan, had bipartisan support, opposed unanimously by the Democratic and Republican leaders of the House and Senate, embraced by the President, really embraced too late, I thought. His own commission made the recommendations last November, and it took him until really the spring in order to embrace them. It's really too long. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But at the end of the day, we don't have all the answers as Democrats. The Republicans don't have all the answers. We're all in this together, and we need to act that way.
Senator, you, Senator Coons and Congressman Carney, none of you like the bill. Yet
but we like each other.
You like each other. But why can't the rest of you like each other? The 3 of you like each other, but something is clearly amiss in Congress. What is wrong? How is it fixed?
There's some folks they're on the scene these days, and they've been sort of growing in numbers in recent years. They're not interested in compromising. It's sort of like my way or the highway. This country was built on the belief that no one party has all the answers, and we don't, and frankly neither do the Republicans. There has to be a willingness to give, to find the middle, and we just have a bunch of people these days that don't. I started a number of years ago with I think with reapportionment in the House of Representatives. And what you have in the recent years is the ability to figure out which districts, which congressional districts out of 435 in the Congress are likely to be Republican and which are likely to be Democrat. And what we have now seen happen is, in order to win these Republican seats, they go to the people on the far right. A lot of the Democratic seats, they go to the people on the left. So we end up with the House of Representatives with a lot of people that are very liberal or very conservative. And they get elected, and they say, all right, now go work together. And it doesn't always work that way. Some of them actually get elected and come to the Senate. And in fact, the Senate, which historically has been, if you will, the saucer into which the hot tea sort of spills and cools. That's what, I think that's Jefferson's term. We have some of the folks from the House are got elected, extremes on either side, and they're now ending up in the Senate and bringing the same kind of mentality to the Senate. That's what's going on. And there's actually an interesting experience. I mentioned California at the top of the show. There's an interesting experiment going on in California. Arnold Schwarzenegger is actually the champion behind this. And the idea is that in California, they have set up sort of like a judicial panel to do the reapportionment. So you won't have, like they have in Florida, congressional districts that stretch from one side of Florida, from the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. But actually districts where people who can get elected that are centrists or moderates, from whether they're Democrats or Republicans, that is actually what we need to do. It'll be interesting to see how it works in California.
Senator, many Americans have lost faith in Congress's ability to get anything done at this point. Convince us that you can get things done.
I'll just use an example. In the Bush administration, 3 free trade agreements were negotiated, one with South Korea, one with Panama, one with Colombia. And they were further updated during the Obama administration. President Obama has presented them to the Congress, and he said, we'd like for you to ratify these 3 free trade agreements. But we also want you to ratify and approve legislation called Trade Adjustment Assistance, because when you have these free trade agreements, some people here will lose their jobs, but we'll gain a lot more jobs because we'll have the ability to actually export into economies where they keep us out right now. But there'll be some people who will be displaced here, and so we always, whenever we adopt free trade agreements, we also adopt something alongside of it. It's called Trade Adjustment Assistance to help people who may need unemployment assistance, that may need some help with health care, not forever, but for maybe a year or 2. The Republicans don't want to pass this year Trade Adjustment Assistance. Some Democrats don't want to pass the free trade agreements. And in Sussex County, Delaware, our big, tourism's big down there, but also agriculture. The 800-pound gorilla in the room for agriculture is chickens. And they don't weigh 100 pounds, but there's 80% of our farm economy is poultry. And we export a whole lot of those chickens around the world. If we want to export chickens to Panama, there's a 260% tariff on those chickens. It's almost impossible to sell chickens if you have a 260% tariff. We allow Korea, we allow Panama, we allow Colombia to sell their goods and services in our country without impediment. They keep our stuff out. We pass this free trade agreement, we're going to sell a lot of chickens in Colombia, in Panama, and in South Korea, plus other things as well. The Republicans want to pass their free trade agreements. Some Democrats do, with certain conditions, with certain reservations, especially in Colombia. But for the most part, we do. The president wants to. But how do we make sure that we protect people who are going to be displaced? So this is a long answer to your question. But in the Finance Committee where I serve, we had, the administration says, we're going to take the South Korean Free Trade Agreement and we're going to embed in it, made part and parcel of the Free Trade Agreement, Trade Adjustment Assistance. So for the Republicans, you want South Korea Trade Agreement, you got to vote for Trade Adjustment Assistance. The Republicans said, the heck with that, we don't want that. And so we're at a stalemate. We're not going to pass the free trade agreements. We're not going to provide the Trade Adjustment Assistance. One day we're sitting about 3 weeks ago in the Finance Committee, and I said, you know, I wanted to serve on this committee for a long time, 8 years actually. It took me to get on the Finance Committee, highly sought after committee. But we used to work, there's a lot of trust in this committee, a lot of bipartisanship, and now we're as bad as the rest of the Senate. And I said, we need to change this. We need to set an example for everybody else. A guy named Tom Coburn, wild and crazy Republican from Oklahoma, sitting right next to me, and he says, I will vote for Trade Adjustment Assistance to be able to come to the floor without a filibuster. Chuck Grassley from Iowa sat there and he said, I'll vote to allow Trade Adjustment Assistance to come to the floor without a filibuster. Olympia Snowe, all these Republicans said, in the end of the day, we got 12. He said, I'm going to vote for Trade Adjustment Assistance. Even though I'm not for it, I want to be able to finish the trade agreements. I want to make sure that Trade Adjustment Assistance is approved. And there's an example of the system actually working. There's an example of the system actually working. We're going to get jobs. We'll grow jobs in Delaware. I think we'll do a pretty good job protecting people who might be displaced in this country. I don't think many will be, but we're going to look out for them as well. That's the way the system should work.
How much of it is, though, the disagreement to blame on, you know, freshman lawmakers coming in? They may not know the system of politics, which may be a good thing, but, you know, they're just trying to prove a point. Do you put any blame on that for why, you know, the Finance Committee doesn't have that trust anymore, or why things don't seem to be getting done in Congress?
It used to be people got elected, they went to Congress, and they would basically be there for a couple of weeks. They might go home to their districts for a weekend or something, then you come back to the Congress. They might run every 6 years. They would raise some money, but not huge amounts. Today, the fundraising never stops. It's like it's 24/7. These campaigns, they'll cost $10, $20, $30 million. Even in Delaware, a huge amount of money was raised and spent in the last campaign, which Chris Coons won. So it's politics 24/7. The nature of the media is it's 24/7 operation, as you know, and one of the best ways to get on television is to attack. And the media is always looking for the conflict and focusing on that. The idea that you can actually work things out and come up with free trade agreements that are actually helpful at creating jobs in this country and increasing exports, that's not the kind of thing that is going to lead the news any day or night. And that's the nature of the animal. So it's campaign fundraising 24/7. It's a news cycle 24/7 that focuses on conflict and really not getting along. And those are things that are just different than they were certainly when I got into this business.
Well, given